Espresso.
Good morning. Welcome to Money and Mindset with the doctors, Dr. Money and Dr. Story Genius. Hey, TG.
How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I know. It's amazing how fast time flies when you're having fun.
Our first weekly broadcast. Hey, I'm so happy because I have been so swamped. It's like I would never have been able to do this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. It would have been.
Oh my gosh. It's like this was the much needed break. I mean, I feel refreshed. I feel energized. I'm ready to kick this party into high gear.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And I'm excited because pretty soon I'll be headed back to my happy place. Yay!
Oh, really? When are you going back to Jamaica?
Girl, I hope to be back there in the next few weeks. So
wow.
Get ready.
Sounds like something exciting is happening. That's always good. Always good to have excitement.
Absolutely. So tell me, so you were in Santa Barbara the last time we talked. So what happened? Now you're back. What magnificence did you
Just working away. I have the vision board party comes up on the 24th. Anybody who wants to join, hit me up on the Beyond Story site and you'll be able to join the vision board party. That's the 24th. We're doing that. And then we did a wonderful grant workshop last Friday. And people came on and learned a lot about the grants that are available right now. And basically, I had a young lady from the Small Business Administration on with me. And we partnered up to help people, especially people in the inner city communities and disadvantaged communities, understand this stimulus money and the grant money that's available right now. Because people don't understand that this money is not normally money that you would be able to get. This is disaster recovery money. That means there was a disaster, they're trying to help us recover from it, and we have some funds available. So normally with a for-profit business, you are not getting grants. You might be able to get a technical assistance grant or something like that, but it's not something that you are to use to make profit. Grants are normally for nonprofits. And people come to me all the time and say, can you get me a grant? I heard about these grant programs. Like, nope. You can get an RFP, you can get a contract. Do not get grants when you're for profit. But right now, because of the disaster and trying to recover from the disaster, there are a lot of grants where people are actually giving. Corporations, private companies, and the government are doing some grant funding and some additional loans and stimulus type of funds. So we explained those, and it was really a good turnout. And people have responded, wanting more information and just wanting to work with us a little more. And we're working with a few people because the capacity is important. Can you work? Who can you work with in your business, and how can you work with them? So I can't do overload because that takes me out of my happy place, which is staying a little mellow. So wherever I am, whether it's Santa Barbara or whether it's in Jamaica or whether it's right at home, I have to keep my stress levels down. But it's been a wonderful week. Lots of people to work with, lots of businesses that I got to learn about, and that's always fun and dynamic as well.
Excellent. Well, I know, and I'm so glad that you are clarifying that for folks, because always in the conversation, I'm explaining that. And then for some of the people that even end up doing educational or research grants, they learn the hard way that a lot of times when you've made your technology available to those organizations, then you are restricted when it comes to commercial use of that technology. I remember working with several folks who made the mistake and developing their product through a research grant, and then they thought that they can go to market and make money, and they realized there were so many restrictions that they couldn't do that anymore, the way that they thought. And so it's like, you got to understand what you're doing. But it's amazing that some of those basic level conversations don't always happen, which means it's great that, there's an opportunity. And that really was the impetus behind both not only continuing this, but definitely the Dr. Money Live show, because everybody wants capital and I would like to see them all get it, but they don't understand the foundational basics, and so it's like, let me first help to educate you on the conversation, the process, what capital is all about, and the sources of capital, but the requirements to accurately be able to attract those sources successfully, right? And to make sure that you can produce the outcomes that you desire. So anyway.
And you know what? That's part of what we're going to talk about today in terms of not just the education. And we've told people, get books, read, educate yourself, listen to audio tapes and things like that. I don't believe it's necessarily a fault of anyone's when they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But part of that starts with how we're brought up and what our mindset is like. Did people read to us when we were growing up? Did people encourage reading? I remember my daughter would get so upset because, I'm sorry, somebody was just at my door. And I'm like, what are you doing at my door? Oh, they're just passing out flyers. But when my daughter was growing up, she would get so upset because I still had my college small TV. That's all I had. I didn't have another TV. And she was like, Mom, can we just get one of those real TVs? I was like, this is a real TV. It gets channel 5, 7, and 9. I can watch the news. That's it. I don't need anything else. And so she had to read books. That was what entertained her. So now for even now, it's so funny when she got older and was, in high school and all this, I started fussing with her about a bill that came from Barnes and Noble. And I was like, can't you be like any other regular kids? Just watch TV. She's like, Mom, do you know what you just said to me? And I'm like, I know what I just said. These are expensive books. Just watch television. So it's how we're brought up culturally. And a lot of times our mindset around money is how we're brought up culturally as well. And I asked everybody to do this exercise and think about their first experience with money. And I would love for you guys to type in those experiences, send them to us, because I'd love to hear some of them. I know I was brought up with 2 different mindsets around money. I had an uncle that would take us out on his boat and we would go fishing, and if the world was ours, if the world was, it was just like an oyster. Everything's yours. This is the world. Look at this. The ocean goes as far and you can go as far as the ocean. And there was never any question about money. He would give us that was my uncle that would give us the silver dollar and give us a 50-cent piece and tell us, when you have a closed fist, nothing else can get into it. Be open, be ready to receive. You can receive anything. And then I had my mother, who was a widow, raising 8 children, saying, money does not grow on trees. Eat all of your food. Children are starving in Africa. And so this mindset was like, wow, I have to be responsible. I can't just spend frivolously. I have to really hold on to money. But then, of course, I had that uncle saying, let it go, be free. So I had a mixed mindset on money. And as I grew up, my money was kind of mixed up. I didn't really know how to manage my money as well. I could hold a little bit, and then I would let some go. So I had different things going on. To this day, I think I hate to say this, I probably have about 10 bank accounts. I've got credit union accounts. I've got money stashed everywhere. And my daughter came over again, same daughter, came over the other day, and she picked up a $10 bill somewhere, and then she picked up a 20 somewhere else. And she was like, Mom, do you know you just have money like all over the place? And I'm like, I know, I got to get out of this habit. I got to keep it more together. But I stash, I have little hidden money because money doesn't grow on trees. So I'm like, well, I got to keep it somewhere. It's going to have to, So we have to practice and recognize what is our relationship with money. So think about your relationship with money, pull those things up, recognize it, and figure out how you're going to have a relationship with it. Now, Dr. Money gave us another chore, another little homework exercise to do our jar. And I wanted you, Dr. Money, to go over that exercise one more time, because a lot of us don't even believe we deserve to save and spend money for ourselves first. I'm hiding money all around the place for whoever, but I don't know if I really felt like this is money I could gather together and invest in something that I really want. So I want us to take a look at the chart. I'm going to try to pull it up for you. And Dr. Money, if you can really speak to this idea of the saving once a week so that we actually start giving back to ourselves, see ourselves as the people that deserve that money.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, that was so rich. You touched on so much around that psychology of money. My brain started going in so many different directions in terms of, yes, that same type of contradiction, because it's so funny. It reminds me of, on one hand, I had this entrepreneurial family. You know, when I think about my family, they own stuff, right? They own their real estate, they own businesses, they own stuff, construction companies, you know, you name it. And they also, on my, you know, for my grandmother on my dad's side, I didn't realize until a few years ago that she was one of the first Black women attorneys licensed in the state of California. And so within that, that really speaks to why, as a young kid, it seemed like I had this natural kind of legal orientation. And I was always negotiating from a legal standpoint. It's like I had no choice but to finally give in and go to law school, because I'm so sick of me kind of being dangerous enough to know a couple things, but not qualified enough to know everything, right? So it's that idea of saying, if I don't, you know, address this now, I think it would be a regret. But it was so interesting, because then also when you talk about the money and the mindset and the idea, this morning on Joel Osteen, he was given an analogy of making it to heaven and then seeing a box with your name on it, and then going in and looking at a door with your name on and going into that room and discovering that in that room were all of the blessings that have been stored for you, but you never bothered to ask for them. Therefore, you didn't receive them. And so when you think about it, I think that sometimes the pendulum swings between, yes, I feel like I'm in a space of abundance and I can create abundantly, and therefore I have no restraints on my money, to, oh my God, I have lack and limitation. And so this idea of paying yourself first is aimed at really getting into the mindset that you are worthy of receiving. The part of what Joel Osteen said that was so critical, that really landed for me, is this thing where sometimes you spend a lot of time sowing seed into and blessing other people, and you fail to ask for your own blessings. You fail to spend the time and ask and believe that you are worthy of the blessings that you seek and desire. And so, and those of us that tend to carry and care for a lot of others, you know, we were conditioned. You, in the sense of, you were conditioned because on your mom's side, there were a lot of you. And so you had to be able to share. Otherwise, the resources perhaps would run out before everyone had an opportunity to receive their portion of those particular resources. But so on a practical level, however, in the spiritual level and the abundance level, it's almost like as you are spending, which was why it was so valuable in this idea of paying yourself first, to create the affirmations as well, where you're giving thanks as you're putting money into the jar in order to trigger additional abundance. And so were you able to find that? Because if you can't,
I found it. I'm going to try to do this right now. For some reason, it kicked me out when I did it the first time, but I'm going to try it again and see. I have it up here. Don't know what's going on with the share screen these days. So let's see. The Chrome tab, money deposits. There we go.
All righty. So I'll add it to the screen. And then there we go. Let's see. Can you see if you can make it a little larger on the screen? Is it allowing you to adjust the size?
Let's see. I don't think I can. But you want to start telling about it? So
yeah, what I'll do is I'll talk about it. So what I did in the idea of the screen, and I modified the chart a little bit. This chart has circulated before, and what brought it back to my mind was one of my Facebook contacts posted a beautiful statement about how he, as a father, gave his two daughters designer bags, but he felt that it was more important to have some money in those bags. So he used the deposit amount of $1. And by the time he gave the money in the bag, it was $1,378 that each daughter received. And that was using the dollar amount, where you made $1. You started off with $1 deposit, basically.
Can you pull it in now? Do you see it?
I do. Let's see here.
There you go.
There we go. Much better. And so we added, you add $1 each week as you're adding. And then at the end of 52 weeks, you'd end up having built up $1,378. Well, I decided to take this a step further and look at some additional amounts just to illustrate what you could save. And so I started off doing the $5, but I also made a modification to the chart where instead of just adding a progressive dollar each week, you're doubling the amount of your deposit. Obviously, as you get deeper into the weeks, closer to the end of the year, you're putting some real money in, and your goal is, remember, these are weekly deposits. So it can feel a little bit intimidating when it gets to the end. But the idea is that if I follow the $5 amount and make those deposits, by the end of the 52 weeks, I would have basically $6,890. And so I figured I could do something with that. I could turn that into some fun opportunities. And so then I also did a calculation and illustration on, so I gave you amounts of either $1, $3, $5, $7, or $9. So if
let's just take a look at it here. So you have the $1 here.
Yes.
The deposit amount. And the account balance the first week should be $1. Last week, everybody was supposed to start with one of these numbers. So either the $1 or the $3 amount, and your balance would be $3 this week, or the $5 amount where you'd have $5, or the $7 amount where you'd have $7, or she took it all the way up to $9 where you'd have $9. So when you look at these, we're now on week 2.
Right.
You're doubling your input. So take it away. What do we have at week 2?
So in week 2, if you're following me and you're doing the $5 amount, then you should have $15 in your jar, because you would have deposited $5 last week, and then you would have deposited $10. Well, the first week was $5 and then $10 the following week. So right now you'd have a balance of $15.
So every week you're going to add the original amount to the amount that you deposited. So that's what we mean by doubling the amount. You're doubling the original amount.
Yes.
And adding to it. So if you're on the $1 track, you're adding $1 each week. And if you're on the $3 track, you're adding $3 each week. $5 track, $5 each week. $7 track, $7 each week. Now, if you get down to the middle of the year, around week 25, you can see on week 25, if you had been depositing $1, you should be depositing at least $25. And your account balance now is up to $325. Dr. Money, that's good. What happens to the $5 people?
For the $5 people at that point, you're talking about, you're already at $1,625.
But you're now depositing $125.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your money is going up. Every week, that $5 is going up.
Absolutely. And so there's some great ways that you can do this. Just for illustration purposes, we said do a jar and put in your affirmations. But what I like to do is definitely have some paper money that I'm using to reflect, but I want my money to work for me as well. So I'm going to do, transfer in some of this money at the end of 4 weeks. I'll be transferring my money into my money market investment account to see if I can put the money to further work so that I can get into some compounded numbers where we got some compounding going on, where my money is doing even more. Let me see if I can outperform what I would have just based on adding the money consistently.
So now you're talking about real growth on the money. So it's not just leaving a little bit of money here under the mattress and leaving a little bit of money there that's not growing for you. But what if I were to gather that money that's sitting around here and say, open and I'll just use Capital One as an example, because I used to have an ING account, ING, and they Capital One. And I loved them because I could put my money there and it was hard for me to get it.
Yes.
So, and they have easy money market accounts and things that you could set up right in there. And another funny story about my daughter, I'm going to just write a book of funny stories about my daughter. So she's young. I put a savings account for her in my ING account and was popping money in there. And when people would give her money, I would have her put some of the money in there. And hers was small amounts, except as she got older, people would give her money for college, and that was bigger amounts. So that was her college fund. And she got older. She started opening her own accounts and everything. Well, I wasn't paying attention to the money that was there for her college and everything. I really didn't pay attention to it because it was just money that was growing. And one day I took a look at it and I was like, oh my God, somebody's taken this money. It's fraud on my account. So I'm looking at my account and I'm trying to go through, I'm calling Capital One and telling them somebody has fraudulently taken this money out of my account. And they're like, are you sure? Because it seems as though it's a consistent taking out of the account and all this. So I'm looking and finally I called my daughter and I said, have you taken money out of my Capital One account? And she said, oh, it said Matthias Cash. And because I had attached her number with my account, when she opened her own account, they asked her, would you like to transfer this money that has your name on it? And she was like, oh yeah, it must be mine. Talk about a mindset of someone who feels like they really deserve things that they didn't even put away.
Priceless.
So she had pulled the money out, had been paying her bills with my money. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, it said Matthias Cash. It was attached to my number. It was mine. We got to get a mindset of ownership of our money and depositing this thing that you just taught us here, Dr. Money, is just mint condition good, because we have to learn how to invest our money in different ways. Now, we're already investing in ourselves when you're adding and doubling your money. And I'm going to move the screen so you can see what number you're going to be looking at by week 52.
Absolutely. And so the idea, is if you kind of advance down to the end of this, look, for the people that are able to use the $9 amount, imagine having at the end of 52 weeks, $12,402. What would you do with that? You can do a lot of things with that. $7, if you do follow along with the $7, you have $9,646. I mean, that's not something to, frown upon. That's some real dough. You can do something with that.
Yep.
So it's like, why not take the chance and, of course, and see what you can build, what you can create, because then you can do things like in your organization. Maybe you want to do a competition. I find it so interesting that people will put together pools to buy lottery tickets. They'll put together pools to make sports bets. They'll put together pool, and they won't think twice about it. They'll happily go out and spend $5 to $10 a day at Starbucks and not even think twice about the fact that that's money that adds up. Every day that adds up. And so, no diss, I like Starbucks too, but they're a publicly traded company. They have no issue with getting access to capital. At least if I was going to be that consistent with investing my money, then I need to go invest my money in a small privately held coffee business, because in that way I'm making a difference, because they're not a publicly traded company. They do not have easy access to capital. So if I could religiously commit to investing in the small business, then they would have an opportunity to consistently meet their operational requirements and hence be able to grow. So I'm not mad at you if you're in Inglewood and you swing over to Sip and Sonder every day. Now, I'm all with you on that.
Well, the other thing is, even if you are going to use a larger conglomerate or something like that, think about investing in the places that you go. And I mean, in small stocks or something like that. You can have shares within them. If you're using these companies a lot, then hey, make some money with them. If you know they're growing, and you can grow right along with them. Now, I'm not suggesting that you take this money in the stock market. The stock market is it goes up and down. What we're saying with this money is put it in something that's a more secure. It may be a slower growth, but it's a more secure investment. So something like a CD or a mutual fund, putting your money aside every 4 weeks of whatever it is that you have in that jar. If you want to put it aside every 4 weeks, that's a great idea to see how much more it can grow. Just imagine if you put that $1 a week in, that adding the dollar, and you get up to the point where you're putting in $52 in your 52nd week, and you would have had $1,378. $1,300 is nothing to sneeze at, especially at the end of the year when everybody's looking for a little bit of money. And that $1,300, let's just see what would happen if it's 13. We'll start with the 1326 and just say you hadn't put the rest of it in. Actually, I'll even go up to week 49 and say you put in 1,225 of that was actually in a simple, 2%, Stephanie?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about 2% because basically you're not even keeping up with inflation. So you're still losing money at that point.
You still actually have some money. That's like 24 extra dollars that goes into there. I'm saying if you're putting it in a CD or something like that, and it's not even performing well.
Right.
Extra $25. So that $1,378 it's actually taking you up to $1,400. You can buy something for $1,400.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could buy something with a bunch less, right? But my idea is to try to get you conditioned to be as conditioned to invest in yourself as you are conditioned to invest in others. And so the point wasn't to necessarily bash the large organizations, but really to be aware of you vote every day with your dollars. That's really what I want you to take away from this conversation. If every day your dollars make the difference on which organizations will exist tomorrow. That's really the bottom line.
Yeah.
Where you are spending your money incrementally is determining what businesses you see tomorrow.
Very true. Very true. And where you put your money for yourself determines how you feel about yourself. Mindset. So make sure if you do start your jar, start it this week. If you're starting with $1, you should have $2 in that jar this week. If you're starting with $3, you should have $6 in the jar this week. If you are starting with, should you have $6?
Yeah. So which one are you asking me about?
If you're starting with $3, you should have $9
you'll have $9 in your jar this week.
If you start with $5, you should have $15.
Yeah.
If you started with $7, you should have $21. If you started with $9, you should have $27. So start your jar and put your cash in there. So at week 52, we can celebrate whatever it is you started with. And then find a way to invest it somewhere safe, where you feel that money will continue to grow. Even if it's just growing where you end up with an extra $25. That's $25 you didn't have. It's better than just leaving it in the jar.
Okay, so be greedy, beat inflation. At least get 3 to 4%. And so how are you going to have to do that?
How are you going to have to do it?
Is you're going to have to be a little bit. So things like if you're using a CD or a money market account, then a lot of times you'll be required to put that money on commitment for a longer period of time. So if you, instead of having a 6-month CD, you might be required to put the money in a 12-month CD in order to get that difference in percentage. Or you need to look at the diversity in your money market account so that you can accomplish that higher return. Later in our conversation, I'm going to be able to talk to you a little bit more about some additional tools, because another tool that I think a lot of times people don't understand nor use effectively for wealth building purposes, and that is insurance. So I am a big fan of using insurance to finance your business, but more importantly, to create your own bank using insurance and create your own family bank. Imagine being able to plant the seed where your kids, instead of going out and financing a vehicle or what have you by borrowing from a third-party lender that may charge them an exorbitant amount of interest rate, how about having a family bank that you go and borrow from your own bank, and you're able to repay with interest because you're paying yourself back with interest, but you don't have to, basically charge yourself an exorbitant amount of interest in order to allow that money to continue to grow. So those are some of the tools and techniques that, through this course of conversations, again, and enhanced with, as well as some of the other trainings and things that I'll be doing, is what I really want to deliver as the gift, because the idea is to help families use entrepreneurship, real estate, and insurance to create generational wealth for their families. And that requires not only understanding those particular strategies and tactics, but before we can be effective with that, you have to have the mindset. And that is why this Money and Mindset with the Doctors, you should make sure that you put it on your calendar and you tune in every week. Every Tuesday, we coming to you at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Do the math and calculate to your time zone. But join us, because we are coming to you with great information that, if you come and take one of our trainings, you got to pay for. This is our little gift to you.
Yeah, it's a good morning wake up call. So thank you guys for joining us today too. Remember, we have coming up, the inauguration's coming up next week. And the day of service, there's an inauguration day of service. I have 2 activities we'll be inviting you to. One is with Ignite, and my family foundation, the Willie and Elizabeth Gordon Family Foundation, is teamed up with Ignite, and we will be at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Center on Saturday doing a COVID test, passing out groceries, and HIV/AIDS testing. So yes, it'll be socially distanced. It will be safe. If you want to volunteer, check out my Beyond Story page, and you'll see information there. It'll look like an inauguration seal, because it's part of the presidential inauguration day of service. And then I'll be talking a little bit more about, well, I won't be able to talk about it because it starts on Monday, but I'll be posting, look on the Beyond Story page again, or I don't know what my foundation's page is. It should be the Willie and Elizabeth Gordon Family Foundation, but I have nieces and nephews who set all these things up. So I'm not quite sure if it's just the initials or what. However, we will be doing a day of service on Monday as well. And I believe the day of service is going to be a reading hour for kids. And we'll be having separate times where we read for the young toddlers, and then we read for the 5 to 8-year-olds, and then the 9 to 11, and then the 12 to 16 or something like that. But it will be doing a day of service, giving parents a little repass for 15 minutes or so while we read to the kids. And we're excited about the day of service. It's Dr. King's birthday on Monday, and ours is going to be on Dr. King's birthday. So take a look on the Beyond Story page and follow us, follow Dr. Money Live, and hope to see you all again on Tuesday.
Absolutely. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to Miss Tiffany for joining us today. So glad to see you, Miss Tiff. She's the lip queen, so she's got our lips going.
Yeah, great. Wonderful.
All right. So everyone, remember, get your information in chart, and I'll be posting information, everything that Dr. TG said, Story Genius, will be available. Look on Beyond Story as well as the Dr. Money Live pages, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.